Hey everyone, welcome back. For all you UPSC aspirants out there, we're going to take a deep dive into a topic that's so crucial for both your mains and prelims exams.
And that is
India's judicial appointments.
exactly.
It can get complicated, but we're going to break it down so you can grasp not just the what, but also the why.
Absolutely. And a key part of that why is the Collegium system.
Yeah.
It's this really unique mechanism that we have here in India for appointing judges.
And it's interesting because the whole system isn't like directly, laid out in the Constitution.
Right.
It's actually evolved over time through these big Supreme Court judgments.
Yeah, these landmark judgments, these landmark Supreme Court cases.
We're talking about the judges' cases, right?
Yes.
First, second, and third.
Exactly.
These weren't just, legal battles.
Right.
They reshaped how we appoint judges.
They really did.
And what strikes me is that these cases essentially shifted the power away from the government
Yes.
to appoint judges and put it in the hands of
By the judiciary.
the judiciary itself.
It was a huge step towards ensuring we have an independent judiciary.
One that's free from political influence.
Exactly.
So tell me, how does this collegium system actually work?
Okay, so at the top, we have the Supreme Court Collegium.
Okay.
This is made up of the Chief Justice of India, CJI,
Right.
and the four most senior judges of the Supreme Court.
Got it. So they recommend appointments.
Yes, to the Supreme Court itself.
Okay.
And they also handle the transfers of judges between the different high courts.
Okay. Makes sense. And what about appointments within the high courts?
So each high court
Yeah.
has its own collegium.
Yeah.
It's made up of the Chief Justice of that high court and the two most senior judges there.
Okay. So they make recommendations for their own high court.
Precisely.
So it's like judges selecting judges.
Yes, very much a peer review process.
Right.
Aimed at making sure we maintain high standards within the judiciary.
Making sure the people on the bench
Right.
have that experience and expertise.
Exactly. And this focus on expertise is really what helps safeguard the quality and the independence of our judiciary.
Now, I remember reading about this thing called the NJAC,
Oh, yes.
the National Judicial Appointments Commission.
Yes.
So what was that all about?
Well, this was a major development back in 2014.
Yeah.
The idea was to create a more diverse body
Okay.
for appointing judges, one that wasn't made up of just judges.
Yeah.
It would include the law minister and two eminent persons.
Oh,
However,
yeah.
the Supreme Court actually struck down the NJJC in 2015.
They did.
Yes. They ruled that it violated the basic structure of the Constitution.
Okay, hold on. Can you explain that basic structure doctrine?
Sure.
Sounds pretty important.
Yeah, so the basic structure doctrine basically means that certain core parts of the Constitution are untouchable.
Okay.
Parliament can't change them.
Okay.
This idea came out of the Kesavananda Bharati case in 1973.
I see.
And the Supreme Court basically said that the NJJC was messing with this basic structure
Interesting.
because it gave the executive branch way too much influence
Right.
over judicial appointments,
Which could.
which could compromise the judiciary's independence.
So the judiciary basically said, we're sticking with the collegium system.
Yeah, they asserted their autonomy.
Yeah.
They saw the NJAC as a threat to their ability to work without political interference.
And that's crucial
Yes, it is.
for upholding the rule of law.
Absolutely.
That's quite a power move.
Right.
It really shows how committed the judiciary is to staying independent.
They are very committed. You mentioned earlier attempts to reform the system, though.
Right.
What have those efforts looked like?
Well, one key effort has been developing the Memorandum of Procedure, MOPP.
Okay.
That's a set of guidelines for judicial appointments.
I see.
There have been a lot of discussions and revisions to the MOP,
Oh, wow.
all aimed at trying to make the appointments more transparent and accountable.
So the system is always evolving and
Yes,
adapting,
absolutely.
even though it's got its critics.
Now for our UPSC aspirants. Why is it important to understand this system?
That's a great question.
How does it apply to them?
Well, understanding the collegium system is absolutely essential for anyone who wants to work in the Indian civil services.
Okay.
You could be asked to give input on potential judicial reforms,
I see.
or even be involved in putting new policies into place related to the judiciary.
So it's not just theoretical.
No.
It's practical knowledge
It is.
they could actually use in their jobs.
Absolutely. And even beyond that,
Yeah.
just understanding how the collegium system works and how it's evolved gives you a deeper understanding of the checks and balances we have in our democracy
That's true.
and the ongoing discussions between the different branches of government.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork here.
We have.
But the collegiate
You
system
yes.
isn't perfect.
It's not.
It's got its flaws.
It does.
In the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore some of the criticisms of the system
We will.
and talk about why it's become such a hot topic
It's true.
in India.
It is a hot topic.
So stick around.
Yeah, don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, everyone.
Yes, welcome back.
We've been talking about the Collegium system,
We have.
its history,
Yeah,
its structure,
right.
and how important it is for an independent judiciary in India.
It is crucial.
But like with any system, there's always room for improvement.
That's true. Every system has its strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
And these weaknesses are really important for UPSC aspirants to understand
Okay.
because they often come up as essay questions or in discussions
interesting.
in the mains exam.
So let's get into these criticisms.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest concerns that people have raised about the Collegium system?
Well, one of the most common criticisms is
Yeah.
the lack of transparency in the appointment process.
Okay.
Critics say that the way judges are chosen
Right.
can feel like a black box.
Like we don't know what's going on inside.
Exactly. And there's often a lack of clear, publicly available criteria
Yeah.
for why one candidate is chosen over another.
So we're not sure what qualifications or experiences the Collegium prioritizes.
Exactly. And this lack of transparency can lead to people suspecting favoritism or nepotism.
Right. It erodes public trust
Mhm.
when people don't understand how these decisions are made.
Absolutely.
You also hear the term Uncle Judge syndrome
Yeah.
thrown around a lot.
Like, oh, yes.
What's that all about?
That phrase basically points to the concern
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of judges appointed through the Collegium system
Right.
have family ties to existing or former judges.
So it's like an old boys club.
Yeah, and this feeds into that criticism that the system favors connections over merit.
So it raises questions about whether the system is really meritocratic
Exactly.
and if everyone has an equal opportunity,
Right.
regardless of their background.
Precisely. And this actually ties into another major criticism,
What's
to the
that?
lack of diversity in the judiciary.
Wow, right. We've been seeing more progress in recent years.
Yeah, but there's still underrepresentation of women.
Absolutely. Scheduled castes and scheduled tribes
Yeah.
and other marginalized communities.
That's right. And it's a problem because if the judiciary doesn't reflect the diversity of the nation, it can
Yeah.
be hard for them to truly understand and address the issues that different groups face.
So it's not just about optics.
No,
It's about ensuring that everyone's perspectives and experiences are represented
exactly.
and how laws are interpreted and applied.
It's about making sure everyone has a voice.
Okay, so we've got concerns about transparency and diversity,
Right.
but there's also the issue of delays in appointments.
Oh, yes. That's a big one.
So the Collegium makes its recommendations,
Right.
but then the executive branch has the final say,
Yes.
and this whole process can take forever.
Yeah, it can drag on for months or even years.
And what impact does that have?
Well, those delays cause a ripple effect
Oh,
throughout the whole system.
how so?
You end up with vacancies in the courts,
Oh,
which means longer waiting times for cases to be heard.
and that just adds to the backlog.
It does. The backlog is already huge.
So it's like they're trying to be efficient,
They are.
but these delays actually make things worse.
It's true. It can also erode public trust.
Right.
When people see justice delayed, it makes them question the system.
Okay, so we've talked about the problems.
Yeah.
But let's talk solutions.
Yeah, let's focus on some solutions.
What are some of the reforms that have been suggested?
Okay, well, one of the most common suggestions
Yeah.
is to codify the Collegium's procedures.
It's like creating a clear set of guidelines and criteria.
Exactly, and make it publicly accessible.
That would make it more transparent
Axel.
and accountable.
Yes, much more accountable.
And what about nepotism and the lack of diversity?
Right. Well, in addition to codifying the process,
Yeah.
we could also put in place stricter rules about family ties.
So maybe excluding candidates who are closely related,
Exactly. That would create a more level playing field.
where qualifications really matter.
Yes, merit over connections.
And to address the diversity issue,
Oh,
we could look at affirmative action frameworks.
yes, like the reservation systems we have for education and employment.
So that would actively promote the inclusion of women,
Yes.
scheduled castes and scheduled tribes,
Yeah.
and other underrepresented groups.
Exactly. We could also make diversity training mandatory
Oh,
for existing judges.
So creating a more inclusive and equitable judicial culture.
Absolutely.
And what about those delays we talked about?
Right. Well, we could enforce stricter timelines.
So the executive branch has to act on recommendations
Exactly.
within a certain time frame.
Yes. Maybe if a recommendation isn't processed within a specific time,
Yeah.
it's automatically approved.
So no more recommendations sitting around for years.
That's the goal. It's
Yeah.
about making the system more responsive.
To both the judiciary and the public.
That's right.
These reforms sound promising, but have other countries done this?
Oh, yes.
Are there any models we could learn from?
Absolutely.
Give me an example.
Well, the UK has a Judicial Appointments Commission that's known for being transparent
Right.
and committed to diversity.
Okay.
It's a good model to study and see if we can adapt parts of it for India.
That's encouraging. It shows that reform is possible.
It is.
We can learn from other democracies.
And for our UPSC aspirants,
Yeah.
understanding these global perspectives is crucial.
Okay.
It's a great way to show off your knowledge in your answers.
So we've covered a lot here.
We have.
Both the good and the bad of the Collegium system.
Right. But it's important to zoom out for a moment
Okay.
and ask what all of this means for the future of India's judiciary.
What kind of justice system are we aiming for?
That's a great question, and it's one we'll explore in more detail in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll talk about the bigger implications of these reforms
Okay.
and what a future-ready judiciary might look like in India.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Stay tuned, everyone. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into India's Collegium system.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
We've explored its history, its strengths and weaknesses, and even some potential reforms.
Right. And now as we wrap up, I want to challenge our listeners,
Okay.
especially those who are hoping to join India's civil services.
Right.
Imagine yourselves not just as students preparing for exams,
Okay.
but as future policymakers, judges, legal experts.
I like it.
What kind of justice system do you envision for India?
That's a big question.
It is.
We've talked about transparency, diversity,
I
efficiency,
have.
but what else makes a legal system truly effective and just?
Well, one really crucial aspect is accessibility.
Oh,
How do we make sure that everyone can
Oh, God.
access justice?
regardless of their background.
Exactly, regardless of their socioeconomic background, their location, the language they speak.
It's true, because justice delayed is justice denied.
It is.
But for so many people in India, just getting to the legal system in the first place
Right.
feels impossible.
It can feel that way.
The cost of litigation,
Yeah.
the complex procedures, even finding the right lawyer.
Yes, all of those things can be huge barriers.
So many barriers that prevent people from getting justice.
Exactly. And this is where you come in.
That's,
You as future leaders.
I see.
How can we bridge that gap?
A good question.
How can we use technology, simplify things, empower communities?
To navigate the legal system,
Yes,
that requires creativity
it does.
and a deep understanding of India's social, economic, and cultural realities.
Absolutely.
Okay, so accessibility is key.
It is.
What else should we be thinking about?
Well, and another thing to consider is the relationship between the judiciary
Okay.
and the other branches of government.
We've talked about how important judicial independence is,
We have.
but how do we make sure the judiciary is also accountable?
Yes, accountable to the people.
It's a tricky balance.
It is a delicate balance.
We want judges to be able to make decisions without fear or favor,
Right.
but we also need the system to be transparent
Absolutely.
and responsive to the public.
Exactly. And finding that balance requires constant communication.
Between the judiciary
Yes, the
Yeah, right.
executive, the legislature.
and the public,
Yes, and civil society organizations too.
everyone needs to be involved.
They do.
It really highlights how important informed and engaged citizens are.
It does.
The future of India's justice system isn't just up to judges and lawyers.
Right.
It's up to every citizen who cares about fairness, equality, and the rule of law.
It's a collective responsibility.
So as you continue studying for the UPSC,
Yes.
don't just memorize facts.
Yeah.
Think critically, ask tough questions.
Exactly.
Challenge yourselves to imagine a better future.
For India's legal system.
And if you found this deep dive helpful,
Yeah.
make sure you subscribe to our channel and like this video,
We got more episodes coming your way.
all designed to help you ace those UPSC exams.
And become the leaders India needs.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time.